Welcome back to Beyond Energetics. I'm really grateful that you are here today because this conversation has been quietly weaving itself for a very long time. And over the past few episodes, we've been exploring the nervous system, neuroception, and the questions people are asking most. Why does my energy feel off? Why do I not feel like myself, especially when nothing looks or appears wrong on the outside? And so, what I've come to understand, both through exploring the nervous system, through exploring my own healing, and years of working with clients, is that modern science is now naming it as dysregulation. And it's actually been understood and held within lineages for thousands of years. So today's episode is a meeting of worlds. It's nervous system science, it's bioenergetics, it's spiritual technology, it is intuition and insight and channeling. And I could not imagine having this conversation without the person sitting across from me today. So today I have the privilege and the honor of sitting and speaking with my dear friend Miriam Katz, who is the co-facilitator and co-founder of the Goddess Grail and curator of the teachings and traditions of Hebrew Shamanism. Miriam carries a deep embodied relationship with lineage wisdom, teachings that understand the body, the soul, and the energetic field as inseparable and extending beyond timelines. So, welcome, Miriam. I am so grateful you are here today.
I thank you, Sarah. I'm so grateful to be here. I always love talking to you about anything and to be really focusing on the nervous system from to be really focusing on the nervous system from this particular point of entry feels really juicy and really rich. So I'm excited to dive in.
Uh, You know, I love the timing of this conversation because it feels so poignant with what's going on in the world, what we're uncovering in our own individual work, and the work that we both do together. And I found that so many people right now are trying to fix their energy. And I want to be very clear. I think both of us have the stance that no one's ever broken. We don't need to be fixed or healed. It's a journey and an uncovering of what's moving through us. It's like I always call it like let's be Nancy Drew and let's dive in and be curious about where we're going and how we can shift rather than heal and re-regulate ourselves. So right now, our main focus is unblocking intuition. A lot of people are coming online, they're diving more into spirituality and asking more questions. And what's happening as well is without realizing it, their nervous systems are actually doing what they're supposed to do, and that is protecting them. Have you been noticing this in your own teachings? Like, how has this awakening or coming online and seeing people try to dive into this work, but feeling like they can't, or they're being kind of held back, or something's just not clicking? It's like there's this invisible wall and they're at this plateau and they don't know how to break through it. For me, that's nervous system, but I'm wondering what your take on that is.
Yeah, nervous system definitely resonates. And the other thing that comes up when people have invisible walls is oftentimes they have different parts of themselves that have experienced trauma or shock and that have created gateways and protection mechanisms so as to prevent them from being immersed in similar traumas. But it's a flawed system because when we have protectors that are holding on to the old trauma and trying to prevent it, they're actually like keeping us in that cycle of trauma, of blockage, of not being able to see clearly. Because once we put those burdens down of the memories, emotions, or imprints of traumatic incidents, then we can see the world not as we are, but as it is, which is a much more clear lens through which to experience the now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where you and I both would like this conversation to go today, is really uncovering how we can shift out of this place of survival, this place that we've gone into to protect ourselves from the traumas and the dysregulations and the experiences we've had in this world, and how to really break through and create and return back to safety and clarity and coherence in both the body and the energetic field, far beyond just this physical meat suit we're in. So let's go further here. And I'm going to pass this conversation over to you because I can see it's like you're lighting up right now and
Yeah.
there's this surges coming through. So I'm going to pass the uh the mic over to you, so to speak. So take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm feeling and what was just coming through that you were noticing is this sense of the return of the goddess,
Mm.
which a lot of us are experiencing and are being called into service. Like for me, personally, I did not have the goddess on my radar for quite some time, and then maybe 5 years ago, I started receiving information and messages from her, and you can see it in common, in the collective and cultures. You go into bookstores, you'll see sections that focus on the divine feminine. There's a shift in energy that's happening, and what was really just coming up for me is this mutual relationship between the awareness of the nervous system and the regulation of the nervous system and the return of the goddess. Because to me, they are inextricably linked. To me, the goddess is the tree of life, and this comes through the ancient Hebrew texts where the goddess was named as Asherah, and she was the tree goddess. This is an ancient Canaanite tree goddess. And she was put into exile. She was literally exiled from the temple. And our bodies are our temples, and our nervous system literally looks like a tree. It is the tree that gives us life. It is our tree of life. And so when we deny the essential foundational nature of our nervous system and its basic needs, and being present and calm inside of our body, then we are in exile, which is another way to say dysregulation.
Absolutely. And the image I see as you were explaining that is like planting a new tree or having a tree growing in the field or in the forest and it not getting watered. And what happens to that is everything shrivels up, everything goes into survival mode. There's uh, a tension that is created within its own frequency and flow. And that's very much like when we think about our own body and that nervous system that runs through us, right? We have the vagus nerve that runs down the midline, and all of it, I describe it as like an extension cord. All of our major organs and functions plug into it. And when that's dysregulated, everything else by proxy begins to become dysregulated as well. And so when we water ourselves, when we allow ourselves to come into that state of regulation, we're then going to flow and we're going to connect with not just our body in a more coherent way, but also our energy and our spirituality and be able to connect with all that is and that sacred femininity that runs through each and every one of us, regardless of gender, right?
Yes.
So, what I think might be important for our listeners, since we're talking about it, is I feel like maybe doing just like a collective breath here, just cueing into taking a moment to check in with yourself. Where are you right now in your body? Are you in your head? Are you in your belly? Are you in your root? Maybe it's scattered. So just taking a moment just to get curious about your own self and really allow yourself to take some time to do a gentle scan. So whether you want to pause this and just take some breaths and scan through, or whether you just want to take a moment as we're speaking to breathe into the body and see where that breath lands. Is it high up in the chest and maybe tight? Is it moving into the belly, which is fantastic? Or is it moving into that back body and expanding out, creating space for everything to move through you? There's different levels of breath and regulation that we can tap into here. And sometimes I find the mind tricks us into thinking we're in one state, but when we actually settle into our body and scan through, we notice what's actually here. That mind is a trickster at times. So just taking a moment now, taking that big breath in and just exhaling and taking note. Oh, is my body holding tension here? Do I feel blocked? For me, I feel like there's a bit of a blockage in the back of my head here, and that energy that comes out the back side of my body. It's interesting. I've not noticed that before. I feel like a resurgence of energy moving through the root and sacral chakra, like a rewiring. It's actually the visual I'm getting when I scan into my own body is like a quilt or a weaving taking hold. It's like there's this new weaving being created within my body, a rewiring and a refiring. And that's happening. A new blanket of safety is being woven as this cycle has been completed, and now we're building onto this new way. So sometimes we can feel it, we can see it, we can intellectualize it, but just allowing you to notice however you do. So I like to do that little exercise, little body scan before we go anywhere and do anything, because laying that foundation is so important in all of our work. We can't land where we don't feel safe, just like we can't heal in the place that hurt us. So that same kind of situation, our body is our home. So we want to be able to create safety before we move further. So yeah, so
I've
Miriam, yeah,
I
I can
wanted
see.
to jump in about that because we've been working together for some time, like
Mhm.
offering, mystical pathways into connection with divinity. And since we started working with your nervous system, grounding and checking in and calming before moving into the teachings and then the direct transmission spaces or shamanic journey spaces, I feel like everything has just opened up, and that the nervous system and the grounding and connecting to the nervous system is really the secret sauce, so to speak,
Mhm.
that allows us to connect with our infinite self. Because if we're not safe and at home in our body, we can't access that, those other realms. It's just we're not safe to do it.
Absolutely. And you know what just popped into my mind was back in 2016, 2017, you and I were working together. We were doing a shamanic apprenticeship together. And I remember us going outside away from all the energy of the space inside where everyone was working and practicing their craft. And just now realizing, I feel we were able to go to that next level of depth with the work that we would practice on each other, the shamanic techniques and teachings and healings we would do, because we felt safe with one another. And it was
Yeah.
again, right, laying that foundation to create that expansion. So definitely, definitely, I love that you brought that up and thank you so much. And I find the combination of that regulation and then you guiding the journeys and the activations and the clearings has like my mind has been blown about how much deeper and expansive they go and how much more we're able to connect. It's just to reiterate and validate back to like, yeah, it's wild. It's definitely that missing piece that I don't think either of us realized until we experienced it as a trio, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're also, I'm always saying this because I'm always feeling this. We are so lucky to be alive today, like as mystical explorers, adventurers. It's like not only is the world our spiritual buffet of like all of these secret mystery teachings that were hidden for centuries or millennia are now available, but also coupled with the rise of the divine feminine
Mm.
and this grounded, embodied way of approaching these teachings, it makes them really knowable. And I want to come back to a point that you made just a little while ago, which is like there's nothing broken in us. And also we already know all that we need and we already have all that we need. And so it's a remembering which happens in the utter safety of our body. Once our bodies become safe places, we can move into those cellular memories and that deep, resonant, vibrational knowing that's already here and remember who we are and our superpowers and like we're all divine.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned it as like a spiritual buffet. Like it's so true and it rung home to me because everything, I think it was you that mentioned this maybe yesterday to me when we were speaking, or maybe a few days ago, I'm not sure. But it's like everything's been hidden in plain sight. And we're
Yes.
just waking up to that. And the more rooted in our foundation we are and rooted in our bodies, the further we can dive into those teachings. And I know for you, this has been really profound in your own teachings with Hebrew shamanism and how you've been uncovering new new pieces of wisdom. So I would love for you to share a little bit about that, if you wouldn't
Yeah.
mind.
Yes, absolutely. So to take that hidden in plain sight piece a little bit further, not only has have all the teachings and all the wisdom that we crave, has that been hidden in plain sight in our bodies, in our vessels. We are living libraries, but also it's been hidden in sight at the center, plain sight at the center. So, as I've been researching the goddess in ancient Hebrew texts, in my lineage, in Kabbalistic texts, what I've found is she's actually at the center of everything. And if you're tracking the text and the cosmology of it, according to ancient Hebrew belief, there was the divine, the all that is, which is more unknowable and impersonal. And the divine created as its first or their first creation wisdom. Wisdom being the embodied divine feminine. And then wisdom created our world. And we just taught a class about this, about the three different worlds and how they exist, not just out there, but in our bodies. And so the more we ground in and get to know that divine feminine embodiment that is at the center of us, which essentially is our nervous system in all of its facets, the more that we can come on board and be that thriving tree who's being watered, who's got enough sunlight, who's got a circle, a sacred grove of other trees around us, a spiritual community, and we can find ourselves at home again.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned like finding that community and moving into that place and how, if I were coming to you, or, well, we know each other, but let's pretend we don't, and I was feeling just not myself, what's some things that you would run through with me to get me regulated so that we could dive into a session together? What would that look like?
Yeah. Well, I would refer you to my friend Sarah, who's so focused on nervous system regulation. But when if I'm doing a session with someone, what I would invite them to focus on is what they want to achieve or what they want to experience. And so focusing on if you were to move through this and come out the other side, what would it feel like? What would it be like? What would be some clues that your world had utterly changed? And so the more you move into the vibration of and the felt state of the other side of whatever it is you're holding, I find that it starts to open things up because we live in a magical, shiftable quantum universe. And our brains, our bodies don't know the difference between something happening and imagining that something's happening. And that tracks with quantum reality, where you can actually make quantum leaps. So for me, I know we spend a lot of time in story and therapy and like other modalities. For me, I like to dive into, well, what's on the other side of this? And what does your world like look like once we've opened it up? And from there, kind of going into a session and pulling out those veils, those blockages, those obstacles that are standing in the way of living from that place.
Absolutely. And I love that we get to be the creators of our reality too, through releasing and moving and shifting those particles and pieces that are intertwined or embedded in our energetic field, whether it's in this current reality or um, past experiences and past lifetimes. It really does shift. I think at least for me, I know this probably rings true for you too, is things that we experienced in past lifetimes energetically can still live within this experience that we're having here and now today. My understanding of energy is that it's indestructible and that becomes transmuted into different things within this current frequency, time and space we're in. So as our soul leaves the body, that energy still lives on. And so it could be showing up in this lifetime as a fear of drowning, let's say. And there's no real reason for us to have that fear. But maybe as someone like yourself or myself go into their energetic field and look to those places beyond the physical body, we can recognize that fear is actually derived from a lifetime years and years ago where they were on a boat and maybe that boat went down and they went down with it. And so now they're gaining or getting to that time in their life where they're around the same age. So it's amplifying that fear, which could be debilitating. And by moving into the nuts and bolts of where that fear stems from and unscrewing it and letting it release through the body, whether that's shamanically, whether that's energetically, that imprint can be removed so that that person can have more ease and they're regulated a little bit more. Their nervous systems can breathe a little bit more. Our nervous system is a fantastic protector. It's wonderful. It does its job, but sometimes when we get to that state of being so hyper vigilant, it can be a bit debilitating because we can accidentally scan our surroundings and mistake them for, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? For, I don't know, not fear. Why can't I think of this word? Help me out here. I don't know.
Danger?
Danger. That is the word. Isn't that interesting that I couldn't say danger? Because I've been in
It
client
wasn't
sessions all
living.
day today. It wasn't happening. Which is interesting. That's a whole other tangent of where I can go with that. But sometimes we can't say words when we've moved past them. But our body could accidentally scan things and mistake them for danger when they're really not. And that goes back to that nervous system moving through phases where it feels as though something's in danger when it's not because of that past experience replaying over and over and over again. And when we're constantly thinking about a fear, it'll replay over and over again. So then all of a sudden, we're going over a bridge and there's this fear of falling into the bridge and drowning, even though this bridge is very stable. You're going maybe like 40 kilometers over the bridge. It's very small. There's just a trickle stream underneath of you. It's irrational. So moving through and being able to kind of take those pieces and heal them in a sense of removing them from the energetic field, again, shamanically or energetically, can really be an amazing experience. And that experience can be even more efficient if the nervous system is regulated and felt safe. So creating that safety is super important. With your work, you're able to tap into different realms from the place of the goddess, from the place of ancient texts and traditions. And I would love for you to kind of share with us kind of what's coming up. Because again, I can see this little spark kind of, it's like I can see wheels turning right now.
Yes.
And I'd
Yeah.
love to share what's up if you would share what's on your mind, Miriam.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about the past life piece,
Mhm.
it brought forth that piece about the living library that we were talking about, that we are a living library. And once we start to understand ourselves in the quantum reality, where even past is happening now,
Mhm.
a book metaphor becomes really relevant. So, in some traditions, this is called the Akashic records, are all of the lifetimes we've lived and will live. And even that space between lifetimes is all there. In the Hebrew tradition, it's called the Book of Life. And every year we wish each other, Jews wish each other, may you be inscribed in the Book of Life. But, if you think about a book, there is a beginning and there is an end, and yet they all coexist. Every page of that book coexists in the now. And so when we look at that from a healing perspective and a
Mhm.
quantum perspective, we can open to any relevant page and we can re-script what's here so that our nervous system knows a different story. And so, we might have a page that had danger or the exile of the goddess, which we can get to because that is literally in the sacred book of the Jewish people that now is in also the Christian Bible. I
Yeah.
believe that means it's also in the Quran. And so when we have this story about the goddess being exiled from the temple of our bodies, we have this utter foundation for unsafety. And it's upon us, the mystics and the spiritual workers, to re-script a story and find ways to kind of reimagine that story that make us utterly safe and utterly at home so the fullness of us can rise. And when we're talking about the goddess in exile, we don't just mean the feminine, the divine feminine, because every one of us, no matter what our gender expression, we all have masculine and feminine inside of us. And so if one facet of the divinity is in exile in our world, and I use air quotes because
Mhm.
divinity is not in exile. Divinity is here. Everything is working just fine. It's we who do not experience the fullness of our own divine selves because of the stories that we've been told and because of the world we've been living in. Like the social kind of hierarchical,
Mhm.
patriarchal stories that guide our world and that regulate or dysregulate our nervous system. So once we go back in and shift things for ourselves and for the collectives, the fullness of our divine feminine and divine masculine can thrive within us and within this world.
It's like, whoa. It's a calling home, I find right now. It's a coming back home. It's allowing her to rise once again and I see it coming up from the root. She's coming up from the root internally and expanding out through that heart center. And it is such a pivotal moment. And it's really, with everything going on in the world today, it's really a blessing that we're able to witness this resurgence of the goddess and that sacred feminine coming forth right now. And yeah, I don't know what else to say right now because I could feel your words so profoundly within my body. And it was like everything was just clicking open to accept her to move into the body and begin to really reclaim her into this time and this space.
Yeah. And I can start to contextualize what I'm talking about so that people have more understanding of where it is I'm sourcing from.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me just pull up for my own notes that I'm looking to the Torah, which is known
Mhm.
as the Old Testament or the
Yeah.
Hebrew Bible, depending which tradition that you're looking at. And we're in the Book of Kings, the second Book of Kings, chapter 23. And the background to this story is that there was a great temple in Jerusalem. This was considered the center of the ancient Hebrews, the Israelites, where they would worship. And divine feminine and divine masculine were both given a home within that temple. And the divine feminine's primary way of expressing or being represented and present in that temple was through an Asherah. And we know Asherah to be the tree goddess. This might have been a living tree. This might have been a statue or replica of a tree that might have involved wood. And that was present in altars in various ways of working. But this was the temple with the Holy of Holies, with the Ark of the Covenant. So this was like that place that people would make pilgrimage to.
Mhm.
And there was a story that emerged. There was a king named Josiah who was a child king who was raised by the scribes. And the scribes ordered, or the king ordered, like a renovation of the temple. And they found a new or an ancient scroll that had been hidden away and had been, uncovered during this renovation. And there's speculation based on archaeological analysis of these texts that they actually were not ancient texts, but more contemporary to the age of these scribes who raised this king. So King Josiah, who I believe was about 12 at the time, read these texts, took under advisement the requests and instructions, the mentorship of the scribes and the high priests, and took it upon himself to remove the Asherah, the tree goddess, from the holy temple. And so I'm going to quote from this English translation. He, Josiah, brought out the Asherah from the house of God to the Kidron Valley outside Jerusalem and burned it in the Kidron Valley. He beat it to dust and scattered its dust over the burial ground of the common people. So here we have a place. Let's imagine the temple as the temple of our bodies, with the Holy of Holies of our hearts, with the Asherah, the tree goddess of our nervous system. And then we get some written text that comes from those who are literate, comes from the brain, the mental body. Not everyone was literate at that time. And this is used to unseat, unthrone the goddess, the nervous system, so that rather than having this embodied rulership that feels gentle and grounded and whole, in that it's supporting the divine masculine and divine feminine, the brain, the scroll, then becomes the new rule. And then the nervous system, the tree goddess, is violently removed, burned, degraded, and ousted from the temple. And so when we have this mythology at this foundational text that underlies the three major traditions that have really colonized the entire world, we have this mythos that is living in our bodies and that is underpinning our reality. And so the time has come for us to acknowledge how it's been impacting us and how we can restore our own divine feminine, our own tree of life, to the center of our bodies, to that sacred place in the temple of our bodies where she belongs.
That's so fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Miriam. I really appreciate it. You always have the most remarkable pieces of knowledge and wisdom, and how you relay it is like no other. So I appreciate that so much. And I wanted to share when you were speaking about the dust being scattered through, all I could think about and what I could see in my mind's eye was that that scattering was the cells throughout the body. And as we come back online, we began to reawaken the cellular memory in each of those cells throughout our body. And all together, they start curating and brewing and growing and vibrating at a higher and higher frequency. And it's like this collective rising of energies. And as we begin to, as we begin to continue to vibrate higher, we begin to, um, sorry, I was distracted because we have a blooper here, but we're gonna keep going through it. Are you
Yeah,
okay before like
yeah,
you
I'm
just
good.
get your water?
No,
Like,
I'm good.
bear with us. We're not moving for perfection here. We're moving for being real and raw. But as we
Mhm.
continue to oscillate and vibrate at this higher frequency as a collective, we begin to rise, and therefore this femininity and this sacred I'm just going to say the sacredness that was once tried to be dissolved, that someone once tried to dissolve, is beginning to reincarnate and reblossom and reignite. And I feel like there's this big disruptor piece that's happening to try and keep it submissive and suppressed. And we're at this piece, this pivotal point where we're breaking through that right now.
Yeah. Yes. And what was coming through as you were talking about the cells is if we go even more micro, the
Mm-hmm.
DNA. So
Mm-hmm.
think about our DNA, right? We have these two strands that we're aware of, and then we have this scattered junk DNA that nobody knows what to do with, but kind of seem like these pieces to a puzzle that have been scattered and need to be collected back and reorganized so that the fullness of our capacity and our self knowledge can come on board. And so, like, what is that? I mean, you just shone the light on exactly what this is. This is the story of what happened to our innate divinity, to our wholeness, scattered, to the burial grounds of the common people. Like, who knows? But just pulling these little fractal bits of DNA back together into this total spiral into the center of our beings reconnects us. It feels like a, stairway to heaven, kind of a ladder to move upwards and downwards in the cosmos. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like this recalibration that we've been fighting to reclaim for so long. And I feel like it's been wiped away from us as a human species. And as we continue to put these pieces together, I feel like we don't need to, well, we maybe need to, but in my mind, we don't need to be looking into the scientific under a microscope what these particles are. I feel like this is where we tap into that antenna of intuition and of divine source and we retrieve that information. It's like tuning into a radio frequency. And we've had this experience, you and I, and with North Star as well, our other priestess and the goddess Grail, where we've actually channeled teachings and ceremonies only to later find out that these were actually ceremonies and teachings that were done long before we ever walked this planet. And it's brought us to tears, the fact that how cut and dry and how like carbon copied these are. And again, we just completely became those hollow bones to receive the information and guidance from source, from that divine feminine, from the teachings that are in the ethers and into our cellular memory and that DNA and those fractal pieces that we've forgotten about or that have been made to be forgotten. And I think there's so much magic and wisdom there. And dare I say, power too. And I don't mean like a power to oversee and overthrow, but a power to come back into self and
Yeah,
self with a capital S. I almost said L. Okay, love. That's what I was thinking. But but self,
that's
right?
right too.
Yeah,
That's right,
self and
because
love,
that's who we are.
right? And I think that can be extremely nerve-wracking for people who do want the big power over us because you can't dismantle someone's hope easily.
That's right.
Morals and values are so core and knowing, like those that guttural knowing, that's something that someone can't really take from you. Not easily, anyways. And when more and more people start to tap into their own inner knowing and become reignited and reunited with self, I think that is the most profound shift in human species as we can get because it only continues to elevate the frequency of this earth, not just us as individuals, right? We think about miracles, well, it's frequency as well. And through the teachings that you share in your programs too, this has been something that you've brought into the Goddess Grail, as well as friends. You've been sharing so much wisdom over the years. It's been profound to see how everything interplays, regardless of religion, regardless of beliefs. There's always this hidden element of connection. And it's like, again, like that weaving to bring that forth. It's like, oh, it's like two little sparks connecting, and this big firework happens of connection and correlation. And I think it's really profound. Again,
Yeah,
that safety tends to come forth from that as well.
yeah. Mythos matters, mythology
Mhm.
matters. And it's one of the reasons I was so excited when, to shift gears a little, when the new Barbie movie came out, which is no
Mhm.
longer new, but it's like you think about these stories and these archetypes that are really core to us when we grow up. So, like, one of the reasons it's important to delve into religion for me, even though I don't consider myself religious, and most of the people who I engage with don't either. And yet, when you're raised in a religion and when you're given a mythology, it helps to shape you, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so, like, Barbie being an example of like all of those little kids who grew up with these Barbie dolls and thought, like, this is a perfect woman or whatever, to have like the movies come through with this other storyline that kind of shows like what Barbie had done to little girls or little kids who played with her, and a reimagining of who Barbie is and what happens when she wakes up to this world. So, like, we could do that with any kind of sacred, pivotal text or literature or even show or movie that has influenced the collective. And so the Torah, or the Old Testament, is a huge one because it has underlied so much that's out there. So when we start to pay attention to these things that birthed us into the people we are, we can start to rewrite those stories and understand our experience in a new way so we can come home to safety in our nervous systems, in our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for someone who's just kind of maybe listening and just starting out and really hearing this information for the first time, what would you share about coming into that space of re-regulating in a sense of how you interpret it?
Yeah, I would say that it's super important to start to pay attention to nervous system, body embodiment, and coherence. And so, one of my gurus for nervous system is you. Like, I look to
Oh,
you. No, really, there's something, I've always said it. Whenever I've had a healing session or a healing moment with you over the years, about a decade now, we've been connected and working together. There's this thing, that this presence that comes in your voice that just drops everything down to this sense of being safe and utterly held. And that facet of the divine feminine, the great mother that is expressed through you, to me is so utterly safe and utterly valuable. And everyone's going to have their own internal resonance of like, where do I feel safe? Where do I feel at home? And so I follow my body's cue because I've learned that that very basic step is the foundational step to everything. So I feel safe in my nervous system when I hear you guide us into that place of safety. And so when you find those people, you work with them, you continue to work with them and seek them out so that your body can feel safe to do that healing that you love. And there's a huge movement towards heart coherence now as well, which is informing our work. And that is really important too. So, like, first get really safe and clear in your body, and then start excavating. Like, we are this archaeological dig where we can kind of pull out, oh, here's an old, emotion that I've been holding. Here's an old story. And once we get clear of those, we can be the divine beings, free and clear, that we were born to be.
absolutely. I love that. And thank you for those kind words. It's interesting because I feel like you yourself, when we've either been talking or when we first met back in 2016, created that home space for me. I remember going home and being like, I finally found somewhere where I can just be myself. And so please don't discredit your own tone and ability as well, because you are magic and you are so wonderful at the work you do as well. So thank you. But yes, going into that realm of safety and curiosity, seeing what's here, what's coming up in the body without judgment too, right? I think that's a big one. A lot of times we can be in a state of fight or flight, but also perfectionism. And we are our own worst critics. We are extremely hard on ourselves. So just allowing whatever's showing up, those places of tension or judgment, and just allowing them to move through without staying in that state of, oh, I need to do this or that, or oh my gosh, there's tension here. I'm so bad at blah, 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 blah. It's like let's flip the script and say thank you, thank you, thank you for showing me where I'm holding tension or where I may be dysregulated or what is causing the effect of being dysregulated or the symptoms of anxiety or that feeling of not feeling safe. And just allowing ourselves to become aware and using that. Again, I like to reference Nancy Drew because I read all the books when I was a kid, right? The Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and all those things. But it's like, let's get a notebook out and, or even just the phone and just start documenting. Ooh, I felt like I couldn't relax when I was in the office today when this person was around. I wonder what this is reminding me of. I wonder who they're reminding me of. I wonder what event that was. Maybe we find out that it was them reminding you, or they said a sentence to you that really affected you when you were 7 years old, and you're subconsciously reliving that. So
Yes.
it's getting curious and really recognizing that not everything is at face value. A lot of the times it's actually a remembering within the nervous system, within the psyche, within the mysticism of the body beyond what's actually being presented in front of us. And sometimes that is past life, right? Time is not linear. We truly, as you mentioned with the DNA, there's pieces that we truly do not yet understand. So it's allowing that space for the unknown and being okay with not understanding and having that logical explanation as to why you're feeling that way, allowing it to move through you. And I think that's where your work also comes in and is so vital and so important because you really do delve into the the non-logical, the unknown, what's here, why am I feeling this way? That's where your genius is, being able to feel and tap in and move those pieces for people and give them an explanation and find, at least I find when you do that in a session, in my experience, I've been able to really come to rest and set that piece that's been bothering me, maybe stewing underneath of the surface for so long. I can put it on the table and be like, oh, thank you for the teachings you've brought me. I'm ready to let go now. And you really do offer that gift for everyone who works with you. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Nancy Drew piece is essential, that curiosity
Mhm.
and compassion are the two chief tools in my toolkit, and I think in any healer's toolkit, to allow that permission to like not judge, because when you're curious, you don't know,
Mhm.
right? When you're
Yeah.
judging, you already know book is closed, story's written, you can't
Mhm.
rewrite it. So you drop that, you go in with that detective lens, that curiosity and compassion, and you'd be surprised what you find and how profound it is. And the
Yeah.
other piece is, I always, when I'm inviting people, when I'm facilitating sessions for people where they're becoming that detective in their body, I invite them to put their analytic mind to
Mhm.
rest. Like it gets an observer seat
Yeah.
because we're always thinking, and the mind is not actually the, according to the Kabbalistic text, which I completely agree with, the mind is not the king or the sovereign of the body. The
Mhm.
heart is. And the heart has that compassion. The heart enables that, us to go in with that openness that we pair with curiosity so that we can find what needs to be repaired and or released, really, because we're already whole. It's just these extra things that we've started identifying with that are not true can be put down.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned that analytical mind taking the seat of the observer. I think that is one of those key pieces to healing, absolutely. And I don't I I hesitate saying healing because I think we've gone past this point of healing. I think no one is ever healed. It's like onion layers, like it's peeling back the layers of an onion. And yes, compassion and being able to take that back seat and really observe and have that place of non-judgment are all key pieces on re-regulating and being open to that unknown and also having an open mind when it comes to different religions, different teachings, different texts, and opening up to possibilities that maybe we have never been introduced to before. It takes courage to allow your own mindset and morals and values to be challenged so that you can maybe shift and expand, right? There's no glory in keeping to the same thing over and over again when you haven't allowed yourself to see what else is out there. It's like you wouldn't stay in the same home your whole life without venturing out into your backyard to explore the beautiful flowers and trees, maybe some weeds that are out there, but all the same, it's exploring, it's being curious, and it's experiencing life. And you never know, some of the most amazing things that you can pick up. It's like why I feel like travel is so vital and important. It brings you into a different energy, a different space, and allows you to expand on maybe thoughts and morals and values and teachings and healings you've had in the past that you didn't realize could expand out far beyond what you've already dove into. It's like with Reiki, right? What's beyond? Reiki healing, it doesn't have to just be Reiki. When you go and expand out, you can bring in bioenergetics. You can bring in, some people bring in reflexology. I've had people who have integrated it into hypnotherapy sessions and so on and so forth. It's expanding out beyond what you know between your four walls and your confined space. So I wanted to thank you for being here and sitting with me, Miriam. And again, just to recap today, you know, regulating your nervous system is the grounds for all the work you're going to do within your life. It is the key piece to delving deeper into the mystical realm, into the teachings, into even your own physical well-being, I truly feel. And a lot of times we can regulate our nervous systems with just a single breath. Other times we need to go a little bit deeper. And beyond that, sometimes we need to get some assistance from someone like Miriam or myself. And there's no shame in that. You know, hairdressers need hairdressers, doctors need doctors, surgeons need surgeons. We all need someone to lean on and be in our corner and in our toolbox. So I appreciate you so much for all the wisdom you've truly shared here today. And I would love for you to share if anything else is coming up, any tidbits of information or wisdom or scripture that's coming through. If you wanted to share anything now, I would love for you to take the stage.
Yeah. I would say trust yourself and trust your knowing. We have been taught to discount and disregard what comes up, to write it off, and to disconnect from our own bodily knowing. And what happens when you start to go within? So you were talking about going out there, and as within, so
Mhm.
without, right? So we have this mirror where you can either go out and explore, or you can start to explore your inner landscape. And what you might find when you start going in there is that it's like dream time, where in the dream world things are bizarre, right? They don't make sense, and it's like, why is there a goat eating a yogurt in the corner with an octopus? Whatever. When we start to go within and sense, like, get curious, what's going on inside of me, and you start to see family members or objects inside of your energy body, it can be easy to say, I clearly don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to stop here. But when you start to find the things that you wouldn't make up, you're onto something. And just go deeper, give yourself the time, the patience to stay with it, write your experiences, or find a practitioner who's willing to go to these hard places with you and start to excavate what's inside, because you'll find keys to your past, to who you are, to the emotions you've been holding or been stuck in. And you'll start to be able to pull them out and to make space so that you can become more of this clear channel, which is our nature. It is our divine nature to be that clear channel, that hollow bone.
Absolutely. And the one piece that sticks out that you just mentioned is when you start to dive into things that you wouldn't make up, right? That reminds me that intuition is very calm, it's very rooted. And a lot of the times we don't understand it. And that's a great sign because that means that our mind isn't making it up, isn't telling us that story. It's so much deeper. So, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, go.
Yeah, our mind, this was coming up so strongly yesterday. Our mind is a supercomputer, which is
Mhm.
amazing. But the supercomputer does not run the show. It is
Yeah.
not the CEO of the company. It is a tool that the CEO and the staff of the company use to process information.
Hmm.
But we need to be heart led. Like, this is the sovereign that is hiding in plain sight at the center of our bodies. When we start leading with compassion, with curiosity, and using our brain to help us figure out the next step, but not what is true, or what is my truth? Who am I? What am I here to do? It takes the pressure off, because the brain is not, like, we've put it as the leader, but when you look at this world and like what we've done to it, when we've been brain led and logic led, it's quite astounding. And so if you can kind of get within your body and within your heart and start to imagine from your heart space what this world could be like if we were to restore ourselves to the throne, what just
Oh, wow. It's for those of you who are listening, fireworks just went off on Miriam's Zoom screen. It was, I've never seen that before.
I've
It was
never
like perfectly timed. It was
I
like the
did
universe
not know
Yeah, it was
I
like the
did
universe
not know
saying, like,
such a
yes.
thing.
I didn't know when such a thing existed either. That was crazy
No,
cool. You didn't even do
no.
like spirit fingers or anything. It just like went off.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it just, we want to be heart led and imagine what sort of fireworks and magic are possible in this world. Zoom just showed us.
Yeah. That was wild. That was so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I see with clients is they'll say, I have no clue what you just did, but I feel more relaxed and more clear and more at ease within my body than I've ever felt in any therapy session I've ever done. And I like to acknowledge that talk therapy definitely has a place. It is fantastic, but it is using that analytical mind, that computer, to really understand and process and figure out what's going on with whatever you're experiencing. Whereas the body is great for moving through those pieces. So it all really beautifully collaborates together, but on its own too, it's fantastic. So it's just two different ways of going through different phases in your life, understanding and feeling and moving through and getting to that next phase so that yourself can regulate and find more ease and more joy and celebrate life because you are coming from that place of regulation where you can just be more open and let joy come in. You're not worried about, feeling the joy, feeling those emotions. So I love talking to you, Miriam. I want to be
Same.
mindful of time, and I will have to pop on again in a few weeks or a few months and connect again on all the things because I definitely want to share more about what you're doing in your own private work. Um, if anyone wants to work with you or wants to dive into maybe Hebrew Shamanism or anything like that, did you want to share a little bit about how they can connect with you?
Yeah, thanks. So, HebrewShaman.com is the way to find out about Hebrew shamanism. And then my personal website is miriamjkatz.com. I won't bother spelling it. I'm sure you'll link it.
Yep,
And then
everything will be linked.
our
Yeah.
collective work is
Yeah.
at thegoddessgrail.com, and we have free lounges monthly where you can sit with other women and feel held and supported by Sarah and our colleague North Star. And we do some mystical immersions that are really profound that ground us into the body and the
Mhm.
nervous system so that we can start to do that high level mystical connection and downloading from the universe of truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a really fantastic container. I'm biased, of course, because with Miriam, myself, and our beautiful co-priestess, North Star, we love to create a community and a space that we feel safe in and we feel good about. And it's raw and it's real. And again, we don't shoot for perfection. We shoot for what's coming through and creating that space that feels safe for everyone. And we have all different ages across the line from like 20 to all the way up to like 87 or something like that from all over the world. We have Australia, um, Poland,
UK.
I think the UK, the US, Canada. So it's a really beautiful space to be in. And we do have something coming up next month that maybe you would love to share a little bit about. We have a program coming up in January, a one-off container. Our goddess lounges that Miriam spoke about are really casual. Come in your jammies with a cup of tea and talk and connect. But then we have one-off classes every month. And our next month, I'll let you kind of share a little bit about that, Miriam.
Yeah, so the classes are for all genders, all
Mhm.
backgrounds. You don't need to belong to a certain religion or anything.
Yeah.
We've been teaching about the goddess of wisdom, that first created being that we were talking about, who then created the world. So she's a creatrix. And we've been studying it through the book Sefer Yetzirah, the Kabbalistic book of formation, which is the oldest, the most ancient, and the most shamanic of the Kabbalah or Jewish mysticism. And we will be teaching about the dragon, the wheel, and the heart. And we've been talking a bit about this, like today, about the sovereignty of the heart and the heart being the sovereign of the body. But we'll also be talking about the dragon body, which is so timely because it is coming on board for people now. So, those of you who have studied the chakra system in the eighth chakra above the head, like this is the chakra, the higher self that we're growing into our body as we reclaim our dragon body, an expanded, more genius version of
Mhm.
ourselves that has more like intergalactic or transcendental kind of power, access, energies. So we're going from, three-dimensional to five-dimensional and beyond as we step into our dragon body. And then the wheel is the energetic field, which we'll be disclosing more about as well. So I'm super excited. It's January 28th, which I believe is a Wednesday, and it's 12 p.m. Eastern time.
And there'll be a live replay as well. And I'll link all the information for that in the show notes. So that wraps up our time together. I'm excited. Hopefully, we get to see some of you in our next event. And I am so grateful for each of you being here today. And thank you, thank you, thank you, Miriam, for sharing your time and your wisdom and your teachings with us as well. Thank you.
My honor. Thank you. I enjoyed it, as always.